Shauna just Fabulous. Shauna just asked if you could remove her as a panelist because it won't allow her to log in for some reason.
Yes. Yes. And welcome everybody. This is going to be class in New Mexico, our what is class and how to do it, especially for our partners here in New Mexico. I'm Isabella. I'll just be kicking us off today and doing a little housekeeping with you all as we all join. So just some reminders, this presentation is being recorded and you should receive a follow-up with the recording when it is ready. We will be using the chat box today to interact with each other as well as the Q&A box to submit private questions. So if you have any questions, want to share anything with us, feel free to stick those questions in the chat or Q&A. If you have an important question, we probably will see it easier if you use the Q&A box, just because that can get a little crazy when we have everybody there. So today we're going to go over our introductions, talk about class, the culture of class, and then we'll have some time for feedback and questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin now, who is one of our reps from Teachstone, to get us started today.
Thanks, Isabella. So I am Erin Sabina. I have been with Teachstone for about 6.5 years now and was excited to have the opportunity to come to New Mexico earlier this year and meet some of our partners there at New Mexico AUIC, along with Cedra and Laura. So some of you may have had the opportunity to come by our table, learn a little bit about class there. Excited to be able to present a little bit more based on feedback that we've heard on some of the challenges in New Mexico of understanding what class is. So excited to support you all in this way and in any other ways that I can along the way here. And I will pass it to Cedra to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. My name is Cedra Spano. I'm Director of Partnership Development for Teachstone. I've been at Teachstone for 13 years now, and I am headquartered, well, I live in Florida now and usually spend my time supporting the southeastern states, but I'm thrilled to be able to do some work in New Mexico and some other western states this year, along with Erin and Laura. Look, it looks like we bumped ahead a slide by mistake. Anyway, it's very nice to meet all of you and I look forward to the conversation. Laura?
Thank you, Cedra. Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Early, and I'm a Client Success Manager for the West. I am supporting specifically New Mexico. And as Erin shared, we had the opportunity to attend the New Mexico AUIC and meet many of you. I have been at Teachstone a little over a year. Previous to my work here at Teachstone, I coached and trained all about class. So it's one of my favorite tools and excited to connect with you all today. And now I'll pass it over to our New Mexico team.
So Shauna wasn't able to sign in as one of our presenters. So Matthew, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit from the ECD side, not to put you on the spot here.
No, completely fine. So my name's Matthew Hernandez. On the call as well, we have most of our pre-K program specialists as well as our leadership, including Ms. Shauna Runk with New Mexico Pre-K. We're very, very excited to be on the call today. Really excited to be in the meeting, and I'm sure we'll get an opportunity to interact. So thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Terry Tapia. I'm with the Central Region Educational Cooperative. And I'm happy to be part of the partnership with the Early Childhood Education and Care Department, as well as Teachstone, as we have begun to roll out the class observational process in our school-based preschool classrooms, as well as Susie will introduce in community-based. But just to give you a little bit of the why we're using class in school-based preschool, pre-K, it is a way for us to gain a baseline measure of the teachers that we work with and their interactions and support, educational support of young children in those classrooms. We have an opportunity to do this twice a year in the fall and in the spring. And our coaches are engaging in the class reliability. They become our observers and are able to then perform this observation on site. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So happy to see so many people were able to join the webinar live. We're excited to be partnering with Teachstone on sharing this information. My name is Susie Kantz. I'm with the UNM Early Childhood Services Center, and our team of coaches support the New Mexico pre-K classrooms on the community-based side. And we're very excited that ECECD made the investment last year to train all of our coaches to double up as both coaches and class observers. So the same people that will be coming into your classroom and providing that everyday support, like Terry mentioned, have also been trained to do the class observations. So that's a really nice asset that we have here in New Mexico. And do you want me to go ahead and do the interpretation as well, since Shauna's not on?
Yes,
or Mark,
please.
you want to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
So we do have interpretation available for this call today. I'm sorry it was a little late in getting started, but at the bottom of your screen, there is a globe. If you click on that globe that's titled interpretation, it'll give you the option to select to either hear this recording or this webinar in English or in Spanish. And if you want to hear it in Spanish and also hear the English, that's all you need to do. If you do want to hear it in only Spanish, you will click mute original audio. And do we have slides that explain that? Okay, and I'll pause now for our interpreter to give those instructions in Spanish. Do we have somebody that's able to translate?
Eric, can you hear us?
He's actually going to be in the isolated Spanish channel, so probably yes.
Okay. So do we need someone to say it in Spanish now?
He just confirmed, Aaron, via chat that he can hear, so we're good.
Yep.
Awesome. Good. Okay. So if you can, in the chat here, if you can tell us who you are. So if you are an administrator, a coach and an observer, a coach who is not an observer, a class observer who is not coach, an educator or other, as well as what do you know about class? So nothing. No, I've heard about it, but I don't know what it is. Have you been observed or know that you're being observed, but you don't know much about it? Are you familiar with class? Or do you consider yourself to be a class expert? So just to get an idea of who all we are speaking with today. Educator, administrator. A little bit. Okay. Just reading through some of these comments here as we go through. Okay. So keep putting that information in here for us. And as we do, I want you to also think about, and please add to the chat, the more that we see comments coming through, we can wrap this into the conversation here. But I want to reflect a little bit on who was your favorite teacher and why. So the why is one of the important things here. So thinking about like who our favorite teachers were when we were growing up, one of mine, and I'm going to use a different example from this morning. One of mine was a teacher in 3rd grade in math class. And we had some kids who got in trouble for, they were cheating on homework or a test or something. I don't even really remember the scenario because more importantly, I remember how my teacher handled it, which is that instead of getting in trouble and all that, we stopped math class and we had a trial. And so we had a prosecutor, defense attorney, judge, jury, and it was a whole learning experience. So I don't remember any of the negatives or any of that. I just remember this really positive experience where we pivoted from math to having a trial. So I thought that was really cool. Do we have any comments that have come through, Cedra, Laura, Garrett, on who folks' favorite teacher taught us to cook?
Yes, there are a few things coming in about people someone believing in them and encouraging them. And I know I said this morning, and I'll say again, I had a teacher, 7th grade English. She was just inspiring to me, just because of her enthusiasm for the subject. And I really connected to that.
I saw, used a lot of humor and made my day fun, patient and encouraged. I saw someone say, inspired me to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So I think you all are capturing a lot of what we were hoping to see here, which is the favorite teacher isn't necessarily the one that taught you math or taught you to read and write, but really they're who taught you to trust in them and to connect with them, and they helped you to feel safe. And that is what's really important, I think. Taught me a different way of thinking. Exactly. So it's these deeper emotional connections that have really had that impact. And so this little video here is from one of our partners. Her name is Dominique McCain. She's fantastic. And I want to let her speak a little bit, and then I want to follow up on that. But I want to hear from Dominique's mouth what she views class to be. Cedra, I can see you right now, so if you can give me a thumbs up to confirm that you can hear it once I start playing. Thank you.
I describe class as the how of an educator's job. So often educators are told the what of their job through a variety of evaluations and a variety of observations, but very seldomly does anyone get granular enough to help them understand immediate action they can take to transform what's happening in their classroom. Class does that. From the domains down to the dimensions, down to the indicators, down to the behavioral markers. It teaches and gives a very clear path for educators of how to do their job. So to me, class is the how of an educator's job.
And I just love that so much because, like Dominique says, so often the focus is on what needs to be done, what are the standards to be taught to, what is the curriculum, etc. But how do you actually do that? And so class is how you have those the learning moments, the teachable moments here. Okay. And now I'm going to pass it over to Cedra to tell us a little bit more about what class is as a system.
Actually, this is supposed to be Laura's section, and unfortunately her Wi-Fi went out and she is trying to rejoin. But I wondered if you wanted to start going through her stuff and then I'll add in.
That's fine. So apologies for that. So class here it's a evidence-based and it's widely used. What does class stand for? So it's the Classroom Assessment Scoring System. So the singular focus that we have is the importance of interactions. But we truly believe that those interactions are what's going to have that big impact on students' outcomes in general, and specific outcomes, which we'll go over along the way specifically. And so thinking about what a teacher is. A teacher, if you just look at the definition, a teacher is one that teaches. Someone that gives you instructions, tells you how to do something. Is that what we want to be as educators? I want you to think about that for a moment and put in the chat here some of the other things that as an educator you would like to be known as or would have liked to be known as when you were an educator. Not just an instructor, but what are some of the things that you want people to say about you as an educator? I'm going to pause for a moment, see what folks have to say. inspire, encourage, inspire children to believe in themselves, safe, encouraging, caring, engage. To coach up, interesting one, I like that. So some of these words are exactly what we're looking for here. It's not just about what you're teaching academically. It's about what you're teaching socially and emotionally as well. Providing that positive role model I see, caring, non-judgmental. So here's a picture of what we think about when we think about a quality educator. The teacher's not just sitting in a chair reading down to the children. We see this educator sitting on the floor. The kids have freedom of movement. They look engaged. Even though they're moving around, they're still engaged with what's taking place here. Right? And so that's what we want to think about when we think about a teacher. Now, Cedra, is this where you kick in here? You want me to go?
This is all Laura's section, but because
no, this is fine.
Laura, I can. I mean,
I got
if you want to get started with it, I can add in for sure.
Fine. So a lot of these words that we just heard, and I'm seeing in the chat, you're getting to exactly what it is that I'm looking for here. So when we think about class, it's a tool that helps you focus, measure, and improve upon your interactions. But what does that mean? So these are three of the domains that we look at. So it's emotional support, classroom organization, instructional support. But what do those words mean? And this is where I'm going to tie it back to what we just saw in the chat. Emotional support, it's how are you connecting with kids? We saw that a lot in a lot of these comments. How are we connecting? How are we creating trust and a supportive relationship? How are we engaging with the children? And I did see quite a bit of inspiring. How are we inspiring learning? And so this is what class is. Class is setting those foundations to connect with children, engage with them, and ultimately inspire learning. Not just push learning down, but how do we inspire that learning? So one of the domains we mentioned is emotional support. So with emotional support, that's where we're really making those connections, as we just talked about. And I think sometimes people think about that as like, well, that's just me being too nice. I think, Cedra, you made a really good comment about that earlier that I'd love for you to share again. But emotional support isn't just about being too nice. You're already doing a lot of this. But Cedra, if you can share what you had said earlier about being too nice aspect.
Absolutely. Can you advance some of the slide?
This part?
Great. These are some of the things we were talking about related to emotional support, helping kids feel safe and supported and welcomed in the classroom, being responsive to children's needs. So being aware of if a child is having a difficult time and being responsive. These are some of the interactions that observers are looking for when they come into your classroom. And then modeling mindfulness and self-regulation is all part of emotional support. And what I had talked about was when I first learned about class, and I think I was trained back in 2009 or so, what I was really struck by is how emotional support is not just about being kind and being welcoming, but it really is tied to academic achievement. So if you want to go ahead and advance the slide, you see that when we have high positive climate or high emotional support in the classroom, we see fewer behavioral problems, but higher executive functioning skills and higher achievement in language and literacy as well. So I think that's the most striking thing, that teachers tend to think, oh, everyone greets kids, I'm just being warm and friendly, and that's important. But it's important because when kids feel that safety, it opens their mind to learning, and we are seeing the connection to higher achievement.
Thank you. That was fantastic. All right. Well, classroom organization. Cedra handled that last one fantastically. So classroom organization. This is where we're saying that we're engaging with children. But what does this really look like? So it's a classroom that's a well-oiled machine, where you're making the most out of transition times and providing consistent and clear routines. But why are you doing that? You're doing that to maximize the learning time is one of the reasons. And you're also doing that to minimize potential behaviors because kids know what to anticipate. They're moving on to the next activity. There's not a lot of idle time. And that leads to fewer conflicts with teachers, leads to decreased behavior problems. So as we're thinking about some of these challenging behaviors that we've been hearing more of post-COVID and such, some of these techniques are going to be supporting with that as well. But we're not just supporting with behaviors, as we saw before. It's also going to be supporting with the actual learning outcomes. And instructional support. So what does this look like? Instructional support, you're likely doing this in the classroom already as well. It's more than just teaching at the children, but introducing new vocabulary, prompting critical thinking skills with open-ended questions. Those open-ended questions should be scaffolded, not like rapid fire interview style, but scaffolded questions that are building on the learning and really engaging with the children's interests. Helping predict outcomes, analyzing information. Will this sink or will it float? You're playing, but you're still engaging and thinking about those outcomes. And in doing so, this is going to drive language, literacy, and math, and executive functioning skills. Cedra, anything you want to add to anything that we've discussed here? Do we have any questions that have come in?
Actually, I didn't look at the questions. I'll just add that for those who are being observed or have been observed and are wondering, like, what is it that those observers are writing about or what notes are they taking? This is what they're looking for. They're looking for these types of interactions where a teacher is doing these things where under the looks like category. So that's what's being coded. No, I don't see any specific questions there.
Well, what you said just goes perfect.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Yes, it flows right into here. What to expect during an observation. So I know that many of you have been observed before, but some of you maybe haven't been or didn't get this information ahead of your first observation. So we do want to make sure everybody feels comfortable in understanding why someone is there to observe. And honestly, one of our goals is just to reduce stress level. I know it can be hard to be observed, but I think if you understand what it's about and what they're writing about and the purpose of it, that will help with understanding. So the class observation lasts about 2 hours. They're done in cycles. So there's 4 cycles that are a total of 30 minutes each. So basically the observer will observe for 20 minutes and they'll be taking a lot of notes, looking at those interactions that are happening. And then they'll take 10 minutes to code. So they'll observe for 20 minutes, code for 10 minutes. And then they do that over a course of 4 cycles. So it's a total of 2 hours. And really I wanted to make sure that people understood the note taking and what that's about. When they do the 10 minutes of coding, they may walk out of the classroom or they may just kind of turn around in the back of the room to do that, trying to stay out of the way and not draw any attention to themselves, basically. So the observer is going to stand typically in the back of the room. They may move around a little bit to get a better view of what's happening, but they will not interact with the children or the teacher during the observation. Now, they're not going to be rude if a child asks them a question or what they're there for. They will answer and let them know they're just there to watch, but they will not be seeking, interaction with children or teacher. And really the main point is this last one, to just be yourself. There's really nothing you need to do to prepare for an observation. The observer just wants to see you teaching. And you're already interacting all the time during the classroom. You don't have to worry about preparing something special at all. We just want to see your natural teaching environment. And then the observation, the data that's collected is used to provide feedback and support to the teacher. So that's the purpose of doing it, is to help teachers with follow-up and support. And I'm happy to have one of my New Mexico colleagues talk a little bit more about the specific way that feedback and support is provided.
Hi all, and Cedra, thank you. I'm happy to share how we're providing feedback in school-based preschool or pre-K. We will be collecting the data, as Cedra has explained. And then your early childhood instructional coach is the one that will be reviewing the scores and providing feedback during one of your subsequent reflection and feedback meetings for practice-based coaching. So just know that it'll go into my TeachStone, we'll get the report, you will as well, and then your coach will be reviewing it with you to set some baseline practice-based coaching goals for the future.
Excellent, thank you.
Susie,
And
did you?
Cedra will be following a similar process on the community-based side. So when you receive a call to set up your the day of the observation, you'll also be asked to provide some times that you would be available to meet to go over the feedback.
Great, thank you. And I think there may be some questions. Do you want people to use the Q&A? I believe you want people to use that Q&A feature if they have a specific question, and we can address those at the end. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. All right, so I wanted to be sure everyone was aware that we do have two versions of the class tool. You may have heard about class 2018, 2008, I apologize, class 2008 versus class second edition. 2008 is the original version of the class tool, and class second edition just came out about a year ago. New Mexico is using our second edition of class. So I just wanted to make sure you may have heard, or some of you may have come from Head Start and were aware of the class 2008 version. The overall structure of the tools are the same, but there were some updates made in terms of clarifying language to make the second edition version more effective to support use in diverse settings. We can move to the next slide. We'll just explain a little bit more about what that looks like. So we did make enhancements to the second edition, really to focus on those two bullet points below, to really honor individual and cultural variations and ways of being, and to support interactions with individual children. So we want to make sure everybody's needs are getting met, and we had some focus groups, and we got a lot of feedback from the field to help us make updates in terms of language to be clearer about using class in diverse settings. So, and the 5 core practices listed below are some of the ways that we've made enhancements in the second edition tool. For example, nonverbal responses in language modeling are now, there's a way to code for nonverbal responses, not just verbal responses. It's just a way to make the tool more useful in classrooms with children with special needs, as one example. I also want to make sure everybody is aware, if you're interested in looking more specifically at the differences between the 2008 version and second edition, we do have a crosswalk that gives very detailed information, dimension to dimension, and describes any updated language that you might see. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the class system. At TeachStone, we talk about this cycle of focusing, measuring, and improving. And it is a cycle, so we're always kind of revisiting, refocusing, measuring, and improving as an ongoing, continuous improvement process. Focus really is about making sure everybody is kind of focused and attending on the importance of interactions. And it's also about helping people understand why we're doing this process. So doing this webinar is an example of focusing and helping everyone understand why class observations are happening and the whole purpose of them, which is to help drive improvement efforts. So we focus people's attention. We are measuring, so we are having observers go in and observe classrooms and collect that data, but the purpose of that data is to drive improvement efforts. I want to just be clear about that class is more than just an assessment tool, that it is a system, and the real driver here is this improvement piece. And that's New Mexico's intent in using the tool, is helping teachers drive improvement.
I want to pause here for a moment for two reasons. One, I'm going to skip the next slide and wait until we have Shauna able to join us to present on this next one. Isabella, are you able to add Shauna?
I sent her the link, but I haven't seen her get in yet.
Okay. And second is, Terry, thank you for offering to answer one of these questions that came in. So looking back at so someone asked, can administrators be made aware of observation dates, please? So Terry, if you can chime in here.
Thank you. So we are getting ready to begin our fall observation window. I'm happy to just share a little bit about how in New Mexico, especially, well, for both community-based and school-based, last year, that was the first year we engaged in the class observation process. And it was a really heavy lift. We observed over 600 teachers in a 3-week period, or less than, I think it was less than a month. And our observers were out completing observations nonstop. It just was really hard to do that, and then attempt to do that in the spring as well. So we had a conversation with our experts here at Teachstone, Erin, Cedra, Laura, and asked, what would it look like if we were to create 2 cohorts, a fall cohort and a spring cohort, and maybe take that number and cut it in half? And they would still get a year's worth of data, because they will always be observed in the fall, these same teachers, and the teachers in the spring as well. So we can observe and measure improvement over time. So we then took this idea to the Early Childhood Education and Care Department and asked, what do you think about this? Would we be able to do this? And we're really grateful that also our department said, yes, that seems doable. So this year, we will have certain school districts that will be observed in the fall, and then the balance of the school districts that we support will be observed in the spring. We committed to working with all of the school districts that have new teachers this year, or a lot of new teachers, so that we can get that fall observation early on. So that being said, our fall window will start on September 18th. And later, either tomorrow or day after tomorrow, the email message will be going out to all administrators and teachers who will be receiving a fall observation, with a proposed window for the observation to take place. If that is not a convenient time, maybe your teacher is going to be out during the day that we're proposing, we have some alternate dates, but we are really hoping that we can complete all of our fall observations within a 3-week window starting September 18th. So that's what we're doing for school-based programs.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for clarifying that, and good to see you there, Shauna. So I paused to give you the opportunity to unveil the good news of the new resource that we're going to be adding for folks. So I'll give you a moment to speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry it took so long. I was just sitting in the background observing. Thank you all for being here, and huge thanks to our partners at Teachstone, UNM Early Childhood Services Center, and CREC. As you all know, this is really an important partnership to support all of the educators in the classrooms and administrators, ultimately to improve outcomes for our littlest children and our pre-K students. We appreciate your feedback from last year regarding class, some things that worked really well, some things that you had some great suggestions for improvements. This webinar is one of those items that we really took to heart when we heard folks say, hey, we're open to participating in class. We just want to learn a little bit more about it. and why we're utilizing it in New Mexico. So I hope you find this really useful. Another piece of feedback that we received last year was really good thoughts on the receiving of the after the class is done, receiving the feedback. But we had a little bit of an opportunity to say, okay, well, how can we really intentionally strengthen incorporating what we learned from class into those practice-based coaching sessions and into the consultation. And through our partnership with Teachstone, we learned that they had already thought of that, and they have a lot of learning resources available that are in line with the class tool. So if, as you're reviewing your feedback and your observation, and there's an area of growth or an area where an educator says, hey, yeah, I really want to, focus on that and learn more about this particular item, there are learning resources available. So beginning this year, when you receive that feedback, your coach will be utilizing resources through Teachstone that's going to be supported and provided to you all by ECECD to really make that feedback very intentional and help support you in your work. So hopefully we look forward to your feedback as the coaches begin to incorporate these learning resources. You will have access to all of this information, and I know the Teachstone team can share a little bit more, but ECECD is very committed to making sure that you have all the resources at your fingertips to enhance your teaching practices and those outcomes for children. So really happy to incorporate that into our toolbox and into your toolbox as we move forward with this great partnership.
Thank you. That is amazing news. Definitely excited that you all are going to be able to share this. One of the things, so you all will receive this webinar after the webinar. Part of it, you'll also have this on a custom success portal, and on that custom success portal will also be a demo on the platform to have a larger understanding of the learning resources here. But as Shauna mentioned, some of the really great aspects are, as a coach, you now have these resources at your disposal to be able, well, you will have these resources at your disposal to be able to take the observational data and use that to align it to professional development for individuals that you're coaching, for larger programs. Administrators will have that visibility for larger programs, and be able to really drill down into the specific areas that are opportunities for growth. As an educator, you're empowered to do self-study. So you'll see, this is some of what you'll see when you open up a video, is you'll have how long the video is, what dimensions are reflected, age level. We call out what to look for, and we call out specific moments that those interactions are reflected. So you can also reality check that you're catching those moments, that you're catching those really great interactions that are taking place, and you can engage in the dialogue within the platform.
I just wanted to mention, Erin, the example we put up here is a Spanish video. So we do have a lot of resources in Spanish. Obviously, we also have a lot of resources in English as well. But this, yeah, so you'll see here, as Erin mentioned, that teachers can search through this information and look for videos that are of interest to them. Coaches can also recommend resources to teachers so that, they may have something in mind they want the teacher to look at and view. Videos are one aspect of this, but there's also course content and just links to other blog posts and other resources of interest outside of videos, although the videos are a large part of what's available. So it's really helpful for a teacher who doesn't really, maybe just wants a little more better understanding of what a particular dimension is or what a particular indicator looks like. They'll be able to access these videos. I think somebody was asking when they would get access to this. I don't know if we have an exact timetable, but
later this year. I'm not certain exactly when. And yeah, as Cedric called out, so there's over 1,200 resources within the platform here, different age levels. And you can even type in, like, if you're looking for a specific time of day, like, how do I really support interactions during mealtime, for example? You can type that in and really focus what it is that you're wanting to focus your professional development on. All right. Do we have any questions for us to pause for before we get into creating a culture of class?
Erin, there
actually was one question, Susie. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You probably saw it.
There was a question about the community-based programs and when they could expect their class observations this school year. So we're really excited about all of the expansion on the community-based side this school year. So we are going to be focusing our priority on observing the brand new classrooms this fall, and those observations will take place around that same timetable, late September, early October. So you should be hearing from somebody soon if you're one of the many programs that had expansion this year. And then the other classrooms will be receiving observations in the spring. And in the meantime, we encourage all of the returning classrooms to really use their scores and feedback from the spring to begin creating those goals and setting coaching goals with your coach that's coming into your classroom, and goals for your program. Because as somebody mentioned in the chat, there was a little bit of a delay in getting the feedback from the spring observations. So many programs didn't have a lot of time to review that feedback or implement any change before the end of the school year. So if you're one of the classrooms that's returning, you have returning staff, we encourage you to go back and look at the feedback from the spring and create your goals on that. If you're brand new, you'll hear from us soon to schedule a time to get out there and give you some feedback on your program. And if you are having trouble accessing those reports, please feel free to email me, and I will put my email in the chat.
Fantastic. Thank you, Susie. And were there any others?
Yes, we had another question in Spanish asking if there will be bilingual audio or visual materials that providers can obtain.
Yes, and so part of that will be in that custom success portal. So with the custom success portal, we'll have some of the offerings that are in English and Spanish. Many of our online courses have the option to toggle between English and Spanish. And so, like, this platform, you have the option as well within the platform to change your language as a whole to be in Spanish.
And there is one other question, Erin. It says, what if my students are at specials during the time of my observation? So I'll let the New Mexico people talk specifically about their rules and guidelines for that.
Thank you, Cedra. I just wanted to respond to that. In the email messaging that goes out to teachers, we are going to be asking for their class schedule so that when we do arrive, hopefully we are not arriving during the time when students are at specials. We do know that that is becoming more and more common in our school-based settings. And so we are hoping that we are able to observe the teacher of record for the entire class cycle. So that is our goal. And so we will be asking for your class schedule to avoid possibly arriving at a time when students are in specials.
Okay. All right, fantastic answer. And I think we have everything, right? Do we have any other questions to go over real quick? Okay.
There's one other comment, maybe Erin, if you could address that one that's in the chat. Cedra, do you see that one from Ms.
Hey,
Green?
listen, this is the best problem to have in the world. So this person said, I received almost perfect scores for my observations. How do I set a goal for this? Hey, you know, set a goal to continue to have scores like that. I think that's fantastic. And I think there's always ways that we can improve, even if our scores are are high, or certainly we want to maintain high scores. I mean, that's a great problem to have. That's a rare and great problem to have.
And I think it goes nicely into this next portion that we're about to talk about as well. So creating a culture of class. So thinking about what a culture of class might look like, we're talking about the importance of interactions, right? So creating a culture of class is just embedding those really great interactions all throughout your program. So servant leadership, this is a sort of business principle that if we flip it to be a school-based setting, I'd love to hear some comments in the chat thinking about, so traditional leadership is folks reporting to their boss, so working for those above them, essentially. Servant leadership flips that model where you're working for the end user, generally the customer. If we're flipping this from being a business model to being a school-based setting, who do you think that end user is? So who is the, quote, customer in a school-based setting? If anyone wants to venture, oh, there we go, the students. Yes, exactly. So the students are going to be that end user that everyone is working to serve in a servant leadership model. So the employees in this example are going to be the educators. So the frontline folks who are typically working directly with customers are the teachers, the educators who are working directly with the children. Management is the coaches who are there to support the teachers. So everybody's working to support those that they lead. Teachers are making sure that the kids have everything they need to achieve great student outcomes. Coaches are working to make sure that the educators have everything they need to best support the children. Directors and administrators are working to support everybody within the program to make sure that they have what they need to best support the children. Okay. So thinking about that question about nearly perfect scores. So what do all of these folks have in common? And I did do my research. I mentioned this earlier. So most of these folks are actually from New Mexico. But what do they all have in common? They're all experts in their own right in their field. They're celebrities. They are great at what they do. And yet they still have a coach. So a coach is someone who trains or instructs, similar to what we said about a teacher, except again, it's more than that. Also someone who instructs others in fundamentals of a sport and directs team strategy. So providing that strategy, prompting or urging someone with instructions. So again, it's empowering the educators. It's empowering whomever you're coaching to be able to take what they're learning and really own it. And it's unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. So it's that old adage of giving someone a fish versus teaching someone how to fish. It's helping them to learn rather than teaching them. So even if you're at a super high level, how do you maintain that level? Through coaching, through intentional practice. So as Cedra's answer was, your goal is to aspire to maintain that same level. And there's still going to be some areas where you can be more intentional in your practice. There's always something that we can grow on. I know one of my colleagues commented on when they became a coach, how they realized how much more they still had to learn once they started coaching others. And so again, thinking about the culture of class. So if we think about parallel process is using the same processes side by side to one another. So the same processes that we want to see with educator-child interactions, do the same thing with coach-educator interactions. So we want an educator to be building relationships with children by engaging them in social conversations. As a coach, build relationships with your educators by engaging them in social conversations. The impact is going to be the same. There's going to be a higher motivation to learn, higher level of comfort, more connectedness. Thinking back to what we said earlier, if the child comes into the school and everyone's greeting them and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" that is helping the child feel set up for success in their day. Educators and adults, we want that same thing. We want people to say hi to us, understand what we're coming into the classroom with, what might be going on outside of the classroom, engage what we're interested in. So have those same sort of interactions. And it starts at the top, and the more we have those interactions, the more coaches are like, oh, I really liked when my administrator did XYZ with me. But let me try that out with this teacher that I'm coaching. And the more the teacher's like, I really love what my coach did with me. Let me test that out with this child that I'm working with. You just have that whole culture of really great interactions. So I hope that you found this enjoyable and that you're ready to get started. I would love for folks to put in the chat, what is your biggest takeaway from this session? If nothing else, if you were to go back to someone else at the end of the day and say, this is what I learned about class, what I learned about Teachstone, what I learned about the observations that are taking place in New Mexico. What is your biggest takeaway from this session? Feel free to put it. I loved the servant leadership model. That is one of my favorites. Something else that one time I was doing the servant leadership presentation and somebody called out, and I think I might have mentioned this in one of our larger New Mexico meetings, is the difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule. Are you all familiar with that? So the golden rule is treat others as you want to be treated. The platinum rule is treat others as they want to be treated, which I think that change in wording is so important. Of not everyone wants to be treated the same way. How do you treat others as an individual and understand and support those needs? All right, let's see. Back to the chat here. Oh, loving the platinum rule. Knowing the timeliness for observations. Class is something that would help us grow and help our students. Yes. Better understanding of class.
There were a couple of comments about just understanding what class is and what it's about. I'm so pleased that. And then people looking forward to those learning resources from my Teachstone when those are available to them.
Custom success portal. That's another good one here.
I think with that, there was a question earlier in the chat about the learning resources and access. We are finalizing the contract with my Teachstone to add that component and just kind of renew our subscriptions for this coming year. So by the end of the month, we should have that all ready to go, and we will be sure to let programs know and reach out through your specialists, as well as our website, when that portal is available and when those resources are available to you. There is no charge or no fee for programs to access that resource. I take that back. There is a fee, but ECECD is taking care of that. So there's no fee on the program side. That is something that the department is committed, again, to making sure that you all have access to those resources, which is very important in your work. So just want to make sure that there's no cost to you all. And really looking forward to getting some feedback as the coaches begin to integrate those resources into their work with you all and the teachers in the programs.
Thank you for that. I am loving these comments that are coming in. I think that we have, hopefully that means that we have achieved our goal here of helping folks just understand this is not an assessment. It's not evaluative. It's really important for us to just be having interactions and positive interactions with people. We joke all the time at Teachstone about how you can use class to train your dog. It can be a romantic relationship tool. It's really just about how you interact with others. And so I put our contact information up here, but I want to leave off with just this last thought here. Be the person you needed when you were younger. So we talked about that in the beginning. What was it as children that we really loved and valued about educators and that really had an impact on us? Similarly, as an adult, you need some of those same things from your coaches, from your administrators. and just really lean on that when you're thinking about how you can best support your children, how you can best support your educators. Just be that person that you needed when you were younger. And I know we have 2 minutes left here. Are there any last second questions? I know I'm seeing some numbers popping up here, but I haven't read through them. No. Additional.
Erin, there were some in the Q&A. There are a few questions. Is there additional training for those who are new to class? Would you be able to respond to that one?
Yep, absolutely. So there will be resources within the learning resources that you receive that can support with that. There's a Learn About series, there's different videos and courses. We do also have other trainings that we have that are geared specifically for educators, specifically for leaders, depending on what exactly your needs are. That's where you can really reach out to one of us. We can discuss what your goals are, what your needs are, if the current resources you have can really best support, if there's a different resource that would be able to support. You'll also see a lot of this information in that custom success portal. So we'll call out what some of those supports that we've kind of pre-identified as being prevalent needs within the state are. Some podcasts and some other free supports. There's going to be a podcast that we have linked on the success portal on what to expect when you're being observed. So a whole array of things. And really, if there's any feedback on other ways we can support on a larger scale, definitely let us know. Happy to add it to the success portal and whatnot.
One other question about, will the notes section on the class assessment still be blank this school year, or will that be expanded on? Can you clarify that with the additional contract that ECCD is engaging in, there will now, when the reports are completed, we'll have those areas of strength and areas of growth. I know it's termed a little bit different, but the reports will be expanded as well. Isn't that correct? With links to resources?
So the report won't have links to resources. That's within the platform part, but the report that has, as we're doing the observations and putting to the indicator level, that's where it's going to have those automatically generated notes in the report itself. So the report should have those additional notes for context of low, mid, high in these areas, and that's what it means. The coaches and administrators will then have access within the platform to see, okay, contextually, here are opportunities for growth, and here are professional development opportunities that align to those areas.
Thank you. And I think that answers the other question about directors. When they leave, we should be able to then replace that administrator with the new administrator so that then they will have access to the class information, correct?
Yeah, and remember, administrators, you can have as many as you want. So
thank you.
All right. And I think that is all of the questions. Is that correct?
Looks like that's everything. So again, if you have more questions, get in touch with us at Teachstone, get in touch with your partners in New Mexico. We're really excited to help you in any way that we can. And I just want to say thank you again to all our panelists for joining us and for Erin for kicking us off today.
And thank you all for partnering with us for this. Definitely excited to see what comes next.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Everybody.